Howdy and welcome to part 2 of New Career Kickstart. So in this video we're going to be going to orbit for the very first time in our new career. So let's load up the game. And if you missed part 1, be sure to check out the link below so that you can find out how we got to where we are now. And where are we now is 208,000 in Kerbucks and 78 points of science in the bank, and our tech tree looks like this. So we're going to spin these science points right now so that we can unlock more parts that will allow us to build a rocket that'll be super easy for us to get to orbit. Now I say super easy, if you've never gone to orbit before, yeah, you're probably going to fail the first 1, 2, 3, or 4, even 4 times. You may not make it. Alright, your very first try. But the rocket that we're going to build makes it really easy to get to orbit. So this was at the end of part 1, this is our tech tree. So we got these many science points to spin right now. So what is going to help us get to orbit the easiest? What should we unlock? Well, it's this right here, advanced rocketry. And the main reason is this little engine right here. It's called the 909 Terrier. It has pretty low thrust but very high efficiency in vacuum. It's not meant to be used in atmosphere. It's meant to be used in space. And also we get a little bit larger fuel tank right here, and we're going to be using that for sure. So we're going to buy that. We don't really have enough points to get anything else. These are all 45 points apiece. We've only got 33 points left, so yeah, this is the only thing that we need to buy right now. So we already have the contracts that we need, and remember, until you upgrade the mission control, you can only have 2 active contracts at a time. That's what this is telling us right here. So our active contracts are to escape the atmosphere and to orbit Kerbin. And we're going to do both of these contracts on one flight. Flight number 3 of a new career. So to do that, we need to go to the vehicle assembly. Oh, let me turn this off. We need to go to the vehicle assembly building, also known as the VAB. Now, we're going to use the same craft. The autosave ship, we don't need that. It's flight number 2. It's the exact same ship as this, but every time you take a ship to the launch pad, it gets auto-saved, but we don't really need to keep it, so we're going to delete that, and we're going to load up this flight number 2. Now, we're going to keep the decoupler and everything above it. It's going to stay the same. We're going to get rid of everything below the decoupler, so all of this goes away. First thing we need is that new fuel tank that we have right here, and the new engine that we have, the 909. Put that right there. And of course we need another decoupler because this will be a 2-stage rocket. This will be our upper stage that will get us fully into orbit and also to help us come back down, right? So we need to get home, of course. So we have the one fuel tank, the 909 engine, and a decoupler. Go back to our fuel tanks, and we're going to take 3 of these. There's 1, 2, and the way I'm copying these are mouse over, hold the Alt key, and click, and it copies that tank, and you can just put that right there. Now the next engine that we're going to need on the bottom is the T45, the swivel right here, T45. We're going to put that right there. That's our rocket right there. That's all we need to get to orbit, and it will be pretty easy. Now we're going to of course show you how to do that, but yeah, that rocket will make it fairly easy to get to orbit. Okay, always check your staging while inside the VAB. So the engine, this engine goes off first. We have this decoupler, then we have that engine. We can drag that engine so that that decoupler and that engine activate at the same time, right? And then our final decoupler, and then our parachute. That's all we need. This will be flight number 3, our third flight of a new career. Going to save that, and we're going to go to the launch pad. Now we're going to talk about a couple of things here first before we even fly. So the way to get to orbit. How do you do it? How do you get to orbit? Well, you take off and you fly to the east, and east is to the right on the nav ball. See this little orange line? That's north, so east is to the right. There's a little number right here. That number is a compass heading. It's 90. Compass heading of 90 degrees is east, right? So we're going to launch straight up. We're going to tilt over to the east, and that is going to make it much, much easier to get to orbit. What's the big deal with launching to the east? You know, you've probably seen some streamers or whatnot. They always say, go to the east to get to orbit. You have to go to the east. You don't have to, but it makes it much easier. And the reason is, Kerbin, the home planet here, is just like Earth. It rotates this way on its axis, which means here we are on the launch pad right here, which is on the equator. See this line behind? That's the moon's orbit line, which is exactly on the equator of Kerbin, okay? Now, the planet rotates to the east, and we're going to take advantage of that planet, the planet's rotation, because just sitting here on the surface, we're not moving relative to the surface. But if you click right here, anywhere in this little box, where it says orbit, orbital speed, we already have a free delta V gain of 175 meters per second. So relative to orbit, this is free velocity that we get. That's why we launch to the east. If we launch to the west, we would have to overcome this much velocity, which means we'd probably need a little bit more fuel in our rocket to get to orbit. But the rocket that we've built is plenty. It's actually more than enough to get us comfortably into orbit and to come back home. So we're going to launch up. See the altimeter right here? We're going to launch up to about 1,000 meters. We're going to start tilting to the east. We're going to tap on that D key, and we're not going to lean over more than 45 degrees. This little semicircle right here, that means you're tilted 45 degrees relative to the horizon. So as always, we're going to activate the SAS before we launch, and yeah, let's just do it in 3, 2, 1, launch. I'm at full throttle here. So we're just going to go straight up, and when we get to about 1,000, we're going to start tilting over. We're going to try to keep our little attitude indicator, the little wings, exactly on this east line. Okay? There's 800, there's 900. Go ahead and start tapping on that D key. We're going to start tilting. Trying to keep our wings right on that east line. We're going to tilt all the way over gently. Just tap, tap, tap on the D key. We're going to tilt over to about 45 degrees, which is right about there. It's not quite, but if you notice, the prograde marker is well ahead of the actual nose, where the nose of our rocket is pointing, which is fine, so we can just hold this, what we've got right here. Let's go ahead and go to map view. We're going to keep an eye on this AP number, and we're not tilting past 45. We're staying at 45. Excuse me. So when this AP number gets up to about 80K, 80,000 kilometers, then we're going to cut throttle. Okay, see, we've just had our burnout, so let's go ahead, hit the stage, the space bar. We're going to drop that lower stage, continue to watch the AP. Just right click on the AP and that will keep the information on the screen. There's 70. 75. There's 80. Cut throttle. Now, why do we cut throttle? It's so, for one thing, we're saving fuel by doing this, because we're going to make another burn. We're coasting now, right? So we're going to coast all the way up to the AP, and we're going to tilt on over so that we're almost completely horizontal, right? Almost all the way down. Stay in the blue a little bit, but we're almost all the way down to the horizon line on the nav ball. So we're going to stay there. Once we get almost right up on that AP, just a tiny bit before it, we're going to start burning again. Now, notice what happened here. We have a nice. That's why we stay at 45 degrees, because it pushes the altitude of the apoapsis. It keeps raising that higher and higher, but it also stretches out this trajectory line. Okay, so once we get up to that AP and start burning again, that trajectory line will really start to it'll start to stretch out and wrap around the planet. Okay. Frog in my throat, sorry. So let's go ahead and time warp a little bit. Okay, we're almost up to the AP. So now we're going to go ahead and start burning again. We're going to go full throttle. Ideally, you want to keep burning right exactly on this AP marker. So if that AP starts to creep ahead of your ship, then we're going to tilt over into the brown just a little bit. If the AP starts to lag behind our ship, and you can see it's lagging behind a little bit, then just tilt back into the blue just a little bit right here until that AP catches back up to you. Because remember, ideally you want to try to keep burning right on that AP marker. Okay, there it is right there. So now we can tilt back down closer to horizontal. Now when this trajectory line starts to wrap around the planet, you can throttle back. You don't need to keep burning full throttle for this whole thing. And this will also help keep your orbit from being really, really eccentric and more circular. Okay, so we're going to start to throttle back because there's the trajectory wrapping around the planet. AP's creeping ahead of us. I'm going to tilt a little bit down into the brown of the nav ball. Now when you see that PE marker appear on the far side of the planet like that, you can throttle back some more. And their AP is starting to lag behind us, so I'm going to tilt back into the blue a little bit. And the AP and the PE will swap positions. Watch. When that happens, like that, cut throttle. We have an apoapsis of 83 and a periapsis of 79. When your AP and your PE are both above 70K, that means you're in orbit as far as the game is concerned. You're outside the atmosphere and you're in a nice stable orbit, and you will stay there forever until you burn your engine again and come back down. So as you can see, we have quite a bit of fuel left, right? Plenty, more than enough. That's why I said this rocket is easy, should be easy for you to get into orbit with, because there's plenty of fuel on board. You don't have to worry if you make a mistake. It's pretty. If you need to make a mid-course correction on your way to orbit, then you can do that. No big deal. But yeah, plenty of fuel to help us get there. So we've made it into orbit. Guess what? Right here. We've completed those contracts, right? Escape the atmosphere, which means you only need to get above 70,000, right? You do not have to get into orbit to accomplish this contract. And then, like I said, to actually accomplish the orbit contract, your AP and your PE must be above 70. So this is a nice stable orbit. Everything is good to go. Now, since this is career mode, we need to manage our money, because if we look here, we've made some cash because we got paid for those 2 contracts, right? So now is the time when we need to spend some of that cash and do our first upgrade of our new career. So to do that, we're going to press escape. We're going to go back to the Space Center. And which one of these facilities should we upgrade first? Well, round and round she goes, and it's going to be this one, Astronaut Complex. And the reason being, I'm going to right click on that. For one thing, it's only 75,000. We have a lot of cash, so it's a pretty cheap upgrade. And look at the text here when I mouse over that. The big thing that we want is that last line of green text. Kerbals on EVA can, or I'm sorry, the second line. Kerbals can perform EVAs. So remember, let's go ahead and click right here to upgrade. There we go. So now we're at level 2 for our astronaut complex. So let's go ahead and go back to our spaceship. At the tracking station, oh, thanks, I've got it. Gene Kerbin, appreciate the help, but yeah, I think we've got it. So here's our flight number 3. Click here, and then you go down to fly, click fly, or, you can just double click, and it will take us back to our ship. We're in stable orbit. So why did we do that upgrade to do EVAs? Well, because remember, this is career mode. Not only do you have to manage your cash, you also have to manage your science, right? Do more science experiments to earn more science points so that you can unlock parts. So let's open this up. Let's aim our camera. Open this up. And actually, let's flip back around to this side. So we're in a new biome now. It's called Space near Kerbin. And that biome goes from 70,000 all the way out to 250,000. Anywhere inside that altitude window is called Space near Kerbin. Orbit has nothing to do with it. There's no such thing as low orbit biome or whatever. It's called Space near Kerbin. That is the name of the biome that we're in right now. We just happen to be in orbit, but if you wanted to, you could launch up, like that, well, the contract we've already paid, so we've already got paid for it, so it's not listed. We've accomplished it. But, we have that first contract to escape the atmosphere. Once you do that, which is above 70,000, once you escape the atmosphere, you are in space near Kerbin. So you could do experiments that way. You don't have to go into orbit necessarily, but we have. So yeah, let's go ahead and do our first goo container here. And remember, it tells us right here we're in space near Kerbin. That is the biome that we're in. So we're going to keep that. Take a pressure scan while in space near Kerbin. Of course, the temperature in space near Kerbin. And as always, you right click on the capsule, take a crew report in space near Kerbin. Now, we have a new ability though that we just unlocked. We just upgraded our astronaut complex, so now we can take EVAs. So let's take a look here. As you are orbiting around Kerbin, you pass over different biomes on the surface. You can take an EVA report. It's like a crew report, except it's EVA. By the way, EVA stands for Extra Vehicular Activity. Basically, it means spacewalk. You get out of your craft. That's what it means. It's an industry term. NASA uses it. It's a real life thing. Okay. So, as you orbit around the planet, you're going to pass over these different biomes on the surface. You can get an EVA report as you pass over these different biomes, and you can earn science points that way. Let's take a look. Let's go back to our ship. Let's mouse over the Kerbal, the portrait of the Kerbal, and right here where it says EVA, we're going to click that, and you can see that he is just hanging on the outside of the capsule right here. So right click on your Kerbal, click EVA report, and it will tell you from space just above Kerbin's water. That's where we are right now. We're going to keep that. We're going to get back inside. Now let's go back to the map. Yeah, so when we took that EVA report, we were over the water. Same thing again. Water is a surface biome. It's the same all over the planet. Doesn't matter which water, which part of the ocean you're in. It could be right up here, right over here, down here. It's all Kerbin's water, all the same biome, right? So, as you're passing over all these different biomes, you can do an EVA report. So if you notice, I know it's maybe kind of hard to see, but we're about to pass over this dark green area, okay? So let's go back. Let's go EVA. Right click on the Kerbal, do an EVA report, and space just above Kerbin's Highlands. Highlands. That is a separate biome that we're going to get some science points for. So we're going to keep that. We're going to get back inside. And then go back to map view. So as you orbit around, you can time warp to advance to the next biome. Now I'm not gonna do every biome here, but I will tell you what biomes that there are. So there's water, obviously, Kerbin's water. There's Kerbin Shores, which is this very thin biome. It's only a few meters wide, a few meters I say, but it's very narrow. In other words, as you're passing around, as you're orbiting around, you pass over Kerbin Shores very quickly, right? Because we're moving at orbital speed right here. So sometimes Kerbin Shores is kind of hard to get, but if you EVA and take your EVA report right as you're passing over the beach or the dividing line between water and land, that's Kerbin Shores. So that is a biome. Water, Kerbin Shores. You have grasslands, which is the lighter green area. It's called grasslands. This darker green area is called highlands. You have mountains, which right here you can see these count as mountains, which is a separate biome. You can do an EVA report as you pass over that. You can do an EVA report as you pass over the desert. Obviously Kerbin's desert. Here's another example of mountains. Here's the Space Center. This is just west of the Space Center. As you're orbiting around, you pass over these mountains, you can do an EVA report right there. And those are the different examples of science of EVA reports that you can get as you're orbiting around. That's why we upgraded our astronaut complex first. Now another quick word about EVAs. I'm going to turn the SAS on, right? So watch what happens when I get out, when I go on EVA. It says SAS disengaged. I don't know why that's still on, but yeah. So your capsule will it may spin around a little bit while you do this, but don't. Oh, I hit the camera button. I didn't mean to do that. I like auto mode. Feel free to explore the different camera modes. And I'm pressing the V key. V as in Victor. And that's how you change camera modes. But I like to stay in auto. Well, I can't go to auto because I'm right now I'm focused on the Kerbal because I EVA'd. So let me get him back inside. Okay, camera mode is in auto. There's free mode, orbital, chase, locked. I like auto mode for this. Anyway. So if you notice, yeah, SAS is off. Look. So I'm going to turn it back on. EVA one more time. Show you this one more time. EVA. SAS is disengaged right now. And even though it shows it right there, it's not on right now. So when you get back inside, that's when this turns off. So, and you don't necessarily have to, but yeah, if you want to re-engage SAS, go ahead and click the button. And also be aware, every time you move this capsule, it uses a little bit of your electric charge. The capsule has a built-in battery, 50 units of electric power. Every time you move this capsule, it uses electric power. Okay, it doesn't matter if SAS is on or off, regardless. Every time you move the capsule, it uses electric power. And you can see that it keeps on spinning because SAS is turned off right now, right? But every time you move that capsule, it uses electric power, so just be aware of that. You don't want to run out of electric charge, because if you do, you won't be able to fire your engine. I think you can still decouple. It's been a long time since I've done it. I usually try not to run out of electric charge. So yeah, I recommend you do not run out of electric charge. Okay, so as you orbit around, you like I said, take these different EVA reports over these different biomes. Let's see right now, where are we? EVA from Kerbin's grasslands. Okay, I think we've already got it, but let's go ahead and keep it. We get back inside. Oh, I keep pushing the wrong button. Okay, we did not have grasslands, so Grasslands gets added. But let me show you, just suppose if you can't remember what biome that you've already got, go ahead and take an EVA report. We're still above the grasslands, but we know we already have it. But suppose you didn't know, you forgot or whatnot. You can keep it, and when you get back inside, there's going to be an orange text right here, and that's going to tell us we already have grasslands stored in the module. So we can board anyway and dump experiments. Perfectly okay to do that because we already have it, right? So we do that. We'll turn our SAS back on, right? Keep the rocket from spinning around. Now remember, once you actively push on the direction keys, that's when the electric charge gets used. Okay, the built-in reaction wheel of the capsule uses electricity to move the capsule. So when you actively push on the keys, that's when the power is used. If SAS is turned off and you let go of the keys, then the rocket will continue spinning freely. And as soon as you turn SAS on, that's what stops the rocket from tumbling. Okay? Does that make sense? So we've successfully made it to orbit. So how do you get back down? Well, just today I was watching a streamer, a new player, and which it really does make pretty good sense. And it just happened to be a girl, but it doesn't matter. But she was saying, well, why can't I just point? Let's go back to ship view. Why can't I just point at the planet? Well, that's the wrong one. That's radial out. As you can see, you're pointing directly away from the planet. So let's flip around to the other blue circle on the nav ball. It's got the little legs pointing inward, as you can tell. That's called radial in. That means the nose of your rocket is pointed directly at the planet, right? See? So it would make sense. That's how you get home. That's how you deorbit. Well, no, that's not the way orbital mechanics works. You must point retrograde. So we have a little button now here, because once we made it to orbit, Jeb is a pilot. He now has his first star. He has leveled up. And what do you get for leveling up? Well, you get these little control buttons here. If I click retrograde, it will automatically flip my ship around to the retrograde marker on the nav ball, and it will hold it there. Same thing for prograde. If I click prograde, it will flip my ship around to the prograde marker on the nav ball, and it will hold it there. And if we wanted to go back to manual control, then we click the top button right there. But these two buttons, we got those because Jeb leveled up. And if you checked out part 1, right at the beginning of the game, we're on normal difficulty. We changed one setting, and that was Kerbin's level up immediately. This is why. We would not have these two buttons here if we did not enable Kerbin's level up immediately. What would happen is we would have to wait till we get Jeb back home and land back on the planet before we would get these buttons, right? Before he would get that experience. Well, that's not the way it works. We're here now. Jeb got that experience. He leveled up right now. That's that's how life works. Anyway, so how do you get back home? Well, you flip back around to retrograde, which means opposite the direction of travel. So as you can see we're the planet going by underneath us. We're going around, and let me time warp a little bit easier to show you. And you can see the nose of our craft is pointed opposite the direction of travel, which means the engine is pointing towards the direction of travel. So when we fire that engine, it's going to slow us down. That's what retrograde means, opposite the direction of travel. When we do, remember, orbital mechanics, wherever you are along this orbit, doesn't matter where you are, you do not have to you don't have to make a burn at the AP or at the PE necessarily. Anywhere that we make a burn prograde or retrograde along this orbit, it's going to shrink or expand the opposite side of this orbit. So here I am right now, out here over the water. Let's try to land like in the desert. I'm pouring into retro. So I'm going to do a small engine burn. Doesn't take full throttle, just a little bit. And watch that PE number. It's going down, right? So we're burning right here, so it's shrinking the opposite side of our orbit from where we're making the burn. Alright? A little bit more throttle. That PE number keeps dropping, and it will drop all the way until it touches the surface. And when that happens, this trajectory line will start moving back towards us, see? So I'm going to cut throttle about right here. Because as we're dropping down through the atmosphere, that's going to slow us down, obviously, which is going to make this this trajectory line shrink back even more. We want to land over land. We've already got the biome Kerbin's Desert, but if we land in the desert, that's a separate biome, right? And we can do another set. We have 3 copies of each experiment. We can do another copy of an experiment in the desert for more science points. So, yeah, that should be fine right there. Now, when you're coming down through the atmosphere, you're re-entering. You always want to be oriented to retro. If for whatever reason you don't have Kerbals level up immediately, so maybe you don't have these 2 buttons, all you've got is this button, then just do it manually. Make sure you're oriented to the retrograde marker on the nav ball. It's that yellow marker with the little X inside. And if you can't see the little X, you can also tell the difference from the angle of the little legs that stick out. See how this kind of forms an equilateral triangle? That's the retrograde marker. And the prograde marker, the little legs stick out. They form a T, right? They're flat in the middle, and you have one sticking out the top. That's prograde. No little X in the center. But we want to be on retrograde. And the reason for that is because we have a heat shield. We want the heat shield to protect us. So as you can see, this is the way we're moving. And we want the heat shield, which is under here, to absorb the heat on our way down. We're coming up on the desert. So once you set that PE marker, once you burn and you set your re-entry altitude, we don't even have a PE anymore. It's actually inside the planet, right? Because that trajectory disappears into the planet. There's still actually a complete orbit line here. You just can't see it because it's below the planet's surface. So anyway, we are going to deorbit. There's no 2 ways about it. Okay. And once you set that PE altitude, and once you do your deorbit burn, we're going to go ahead and dump. We still have a little bit of fuel, but we don't care. We're going to get rid of that because we don't need to slow down anymore. We don't need to use the rest of that fuel to slow down or do anything like that, because that's what the atmosphere is going to do, and that's what our heat shield is going to protect us. I'm going to go ahead and close up the service bay. So yeah, here we are. There's the desert dead ahead. So as you can see, and I'm going to hit time warp a little bit here, this line will start shrinking back. See, this is telling us we're going to impact out in the ocean. This is where we're going to splash down, but that's not true, because as we're coming down through the atmosphere, it's going to slow us down more and more, and that's going to make that trajectory line shrink back even more. So let's time warp a little bit. And you see it shrinking back. And eventually it will be completely over the land. So what does that look like from the ship? It looks like that. So here we are coming back down through the atmosphere, heat shield forward, absorbing all the heat like a heat shield, like a good heat shield does, right? Oh, looks like we're gonna land in these hills. Nah, we're gonna come up short. We're gonna land out here, which is good. So we're going to pop our chute at about 5,000. If you notice, I'm still in time warp. It's perfectly fine. There, 5,000 right there. We pop the chute. It looks like we're going to slam into the ground, but we don't. Plenty of time for the parachute to fully open and slow us down. Still in time warp. And boom, there we are. Now we'll drop out of time warp. So here we are on the surface. Let's open up our service bay again. Let's go ahead and do this middle set of experiments. Got a mystery goo for Kerbin's Desert, right? Got a pressure scan, Kerbin's Desert. We have a temperature scan from Kerbin's Desert. Alright. Don't forget the all-important crew report, which, if you saw part 1, I'll go ahead and explain this again. If we try to do a crew report right now, remember, we took a crew report while we were in orbit. So if we try to take another one, we get this little warning message right here. Do you want to overwrite your existing crew report? No, we don't. We don't want to overwrite. We want to keep it. We want to get a new one in right here where we are in Kerbin's Desert. So we're going to cancel that. We're going to EVA. Right-click the capsule. Going to click Take Data. While we're out here, we're going to get a new EVA report from, where do you think? Yep, Kerbin's Desert, exactly right. Now we're going to get back inside. All that data, all the green text is all the data that we had in our spacesuit. It gets stored in a different storage slot because now that crew report slot is empty. So now we can right click and get our crew report from Kerbin's Desert. Very good. So we have an extra set of experiments here that we did not even do, right? Now, what you can do though, on your way down, don't time warp all the way to the ground like I just did. Once you get below 16,000, remember, upper atmosphere goes from 16,000 to 70,000. Once you get below 16,000, that's called upper atmosphere, or I'm sorry, that is no longer upper atmospheres. You're just flying above Kerbin. So you could do this other set of experiments on your way down to the desert, just flying. It would be classified as a biome while flying over Kerbin's Desert. Now, a couple of these experiments, like the goo, you may not get anything, or just like, you know, like a half a point or whatnot. But yeah, that's another way that you can get more science points. So right there, we have done all the science we can do. So let's go ahead and recover. And we got 81.9 science, but keep in mind, I didn't do all the different biomes, right? As we're orbiting around, I did not take an EVA report over all the different all the possible biomes that we could have hit. So I actually could have got more, but yeah, just for demonstration purposes. So yeah, we have 89 science, but more importantly, Jeb leveled up, which is good, because he went into orbit. We leveled up. We did not level up because we escaped the atmosphere. That was one of the contracts that we had. But he leveled up because he went into orbit. He made it into orbit. And we can go check back in here and look at our archives. These are the first 4 contracts offered at the beginning of the game. And the ones we just did 2. We did our 3rd flight. We just completed 2 contracts on that same flight, which were escape the atmosphere and orbit Kerbin. And we have a little bit more science to spend. We have some cash. So yeah, our career is literally getting kick-started right before our very eyes. But that's all we're going to do today. All we needed to do was get to orbit and accomplish those 2 contracts. And we have points to spend. We can unlock some more parts. We have new contracts on offer. So yeah, next time we'll take some we'll be getting more science, of course. We'll do another contract, and we'll actually be going to the moon, right? That's always after getting into orbit, that's the next big milestone for a new player. You know, even if you're not playing career mode, you know, you're in sandbox or science mode. Yeah, getting to the moon is usually the second big milestone that people always try to achieve, and we're going to show you how to do that next time. But thanks again, everyone, for watching. I hope you learned something, and yeah, next time we'll go to the moon. So, check you later.